very good evening to our audience tonight on Globespan 24/7 as we continue our discussion on issues that affect our dear country of Guyana. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course, Devin Bissou, our technical specialist, for doing all the work in the background. We also want to thank our sponsors for carrying this program. And again, we want to encourage you, if you like what we are doing, please join in and contribute your part. We want to thank you, our viewers, also for being with us. As tonight, we want to discuss another important area of Guyana. We have had this gentleman, this honorable son of Guyana, many times on the program. So tonight, again, we want to welcome Minister of Housing, the Honorable Collin Croal. Minister, welcome again to the program tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
And we want to apologize. Minister is under the weather a little, so please, if he doesn't sound the same way, he is not feeling too well.
Nothing to do with my mic, just my voice. That's
okay.
All right.
And of course, with me is Dr. Euclid Rose. Dr. Rose, you need to make some comments to our program tonight before we start.
Yes, I have a program note, Mr. Minister, and welcome to the program. Every month, and this program note is based on feedback we have been getting. But so we want just to set the record straight for everyone. Every Monday, when we broadcast on Globespan, my colleague and I have always prided ourselves on being fair and balanced. We have and continue to be objective at all times. We do not promote the interests or advance the policies of one party over the other. Instead, we promote the interests of the people, the country, and advance its development trajectories. We are not biased or prejudiced against anyone. We do not discriminate. We treat everyone fairly. We normally ask our guests the questions that are pertinent to the country, and they answer without interruption. We do not object, criticize, attack, or pass judgment on our guests. We have always respected our guests as well. We do not take sides or promote the interest over the other. Yet we are being accused by some in APNU that we are pro-PPP, and some in the PPP that have accused us of being anti-PPP, anti-government. We have invited everyone to be on our program. Some have accepted, others have refused. The truth is, we are neither anti-party, anti-government. We are pro-facts, pro-truth, and anti-propaganda. But the fact that we are being accused by both sides is a clear indication that we are definitely doing something good. And this is supported by the ratings from our audience. To date, 97% of our audience, of our guests, were government officials, and only 3% from the opposition. So this trivia dates back to what I would call the American evangelicals. Lorenzo Dow, who in 1834 said, "You damned if you do, and you damned if you don't." We'll continue to be the voice of the people and will articulate policies in the interest of all of them. Our goal is to make Guyana a better country and a better place, where its 780,000 resident citizens can have a comfortable and decent living. We do not look back to the past, success, or failures. We keep looking for new frontiers, and in doing so, we'll be stronger. And last but not least, achievers should not be afraid of challenges. Rather, they should relish them. So folks, again, I repeat, we are not anti-government or anti-PPP. We are not anti-APNU or anti-opposition. We deal with the facts and we are objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. And also before, and Minister, sorry to have you on the program and be in a way like that, but I also got some comments from some of our viewers who say we don't ask follow-up questions. And one of the issues we have is that our guests generally speak for a long period of time. So to have a follow-up question that will also, have a prolonged conversation, and we may not be able to have all the questions that we would want to. So, Minister, again, welcome to the program. Minister, you've been a minister now for just under 2 years. You have traversed the entire Guyana, I presume. Can you give us a candid view or report on what is the state of housing and water throughout the length and breadth of Guyana?
The state of housing and water is improving, and all can see the vision of the People's Progressive Party Civic. And what we are delivering in the housing and water sector is what we committed to the people of Guyana, and that is what we're working towards achieving. And housing for all, equal opportunities for all. We're delivering a better level of service for water, first time access to ensure that we have eventually 100% coverage across the country. Of course, we'll go into details in a few minutes, but all can tell you that they've understood and they see the difference in what we're doing and what we're delivering to the people of Guyana.
And your operative word, Minister, was it's improving. So what was it before you take government? Before you became minister, what was the state of housing and water in Guyana?
So let's separate the two for now. So let's start with housing. Look at the performance prior to the period of 2015 to 2020. You have in 5 years a delivery of about 7,500 allocations that were done. In that 7,500, and I can probably even give you some figures. For example, in 2015, 106 to 1 allocations. This is when the government just got in. 2016, then APNU government, that is. 2016, 2020 allocations. 2017, 1,131 allocations. 2018, 934 allocations. 2019, 1,301. In 2020, and this I'm giving you just prior to the change of government, 1,987. So in their 5-year tenure, you have an allocation of 7,534. But match that also with little being spent on infrastructure, because you can allocate, you can easily, you acquire the land, you can have the routine services being done of allocating, having done the layout, but it is to equally match that with the infrastructure development for those areas, for those housing schemes, and for all those persons who have been allotted. What have we done from then to now? We said to the people of Guyana that as part of our commitment, having assessed what is taking place, and when we took over, there's a pending allocation of 70,000 in our system. So when you go through our LMS system, what we found, there were 70,000 persons at the time of taking over that were awaiting allocations. These are people who are in our system. What has happened since? In the short period, under 2 years, we have allocated over 11,000 house lots to date. In this short period, last year alone, we spent about $17 billion in infrastructure development for new housing areas. That's the difference that you have in terms of housing. So we have committed that this year we want to deliver at least 14,000, and then of course that the remainder for 50,000 over the remaining 2 years. When we got into office, a lot of the doubters said this is very ambitious and it was a dream. But one thing that I'm very happy about, and I'm fortunate to have, is that my boss, the president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, happens to be the former Minister of Housing and Water. So that, for me, that puts me at an advantage. Why? Because many of the issues, because you'll have to take these matters to cabinet or to get approval for additional resources, etc. So it is easily understood, or even some of the matters to resolve, then you can have quick resolution and response. And as I said, that is why, as the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic in 2020, we committed to the people of Guyana that we will deliver 10,000 on average every year, which will give you 50,000 over the 5 years. And that, by our president, has shown that commitment, and that is what he has been giving us the support as a ministry with the necessary resources to ensure that we are able to deliver on these commitments.
So, Minister, you mentioned with less than 2 years, you have delivered 11,000 house lots, which kind of almost double what the previous administration did for 5 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They did 7,500 thereabouts.
Now, you said that there is some infrastructural work that is done in each housing area. What are some of those works that are being done?
So first of all, we have to differentiate the infrastructure. And so most of the initial investment is for new infrastructure, new areas for development as part of our allocation exercises. And may I also let you know, the infrastructure work that we've embarked on since 2020 since we've gotten into office to now includes areas for where they too made allocations and did not invest in developing the area. So those are the first line infrastructure involves the road networking. And so these are all virgin land by and large. In some cases, for sugar plantations, in some cases can be rice land, depends on where we're acquiring the lands from. And these we get them from Guyana Lands and Survey Commission. And so these will be costly. It's much more costly when you're developing land that has zero infrastructure. And that's why our initial infrastructure cost would be much higher than if you're doing a routine maintenance cost or a new road in an existing area. Because as I said, we have to prepare that area from scratch. So obviously you have to have access roads, you have to have access bridges, you have to have the road networks, and inclusive of the utilities. We also cater for the water and the electricity to the schemes. And this is this is what we do for all of the communities. And so you've also asked what was it we found in housing. When we assessed what was taking place, there was little response or communication with the members of the public. We ensured that we activated the automated system so you can have queries being done. You can have a query, you can simply update your information. So for example, if you, Mr. Sugrim, has an application at Central Housing and Planning Authority, and you've changed your status or you've changed your address, then there's absolutely no need to come into the Ministry of Housing and Water or any of the regional offices. All that you can do is you can upload the necessary information online, and our system will update. And so that is why I say to many persons, the amount of persons you see coming at the ministry or at the regional offices many times, they absolutely do not need to come, because many of their queries or many of their issues that they have does not require them coming in person. Then the other thing that we also assessed was in terms of the approvals. And so you had a huge backlog of pending requests for approvals before the board. That is why we disbanded the previous board. There's a new board that was formed. And in less than 6 months, billions of dollars were cleared in terms of approval for example, for the oil and gas sector. And this is all it required was for it to go through the necessary process in terms of our planning division. They put up the necessary report. You also have to interface with the other agencies, which we'll talk a little just now, with other agencies, and it goes before the board. As simple as that. So that is something we corrected. The board meets frequently. In fact, if the need is necessity and there is a huge build-up, we also have another meeting of the board when required. That is another area of bugbear, but we are going further than that. That is why we have already started the work of the electronic single window processing unit. And we've gone a fair way in that regard. So what will that entail? That entails, therefore, it removes the subjectivity. It removes any aspect of persons saying that they have lodged their application for permit and it's being held up by any officer at Central Housing and Planning Authority. With this electronic single window, the ultimate aim will be to legislate approvals and to legislate in terms of the various agencies that will also have to give their input to legislate timeline for response. So for example, when you apply here, you drop, first of all, you take your plans to the local authorities, whether it's the municipalities, NDCs. In some case where they don't exist in that area, you go to the regional offices. You take your plan, because this is what you want to construct. This is what you want to build. Once you get the approval from the local authority, then you make the necessary application at Central Housing and Planning Authority, depending on the nature. So if it's maybe an oil and gas related matter, then we will have to send to Environmental Protection Agency. We have to send to the Fire Board. We may have to send, in some cases, if it's mining or whatever is the case, we'll have to send to GGMC. For example, the hotels, we also have to send those to the civil aviation, because height, they have some height parameters too. So there are various agencies that are involved when the board at Central Housing and Planning Authority issues approval. It is not only controlled here. So what happens is that sometimes these agencies, for one reason or the other, or the local authority, if they want to create political mischief, can stifle or can hamper the process or delay the approval from our end for us to take it before the board by taking a long time to respond. So what do we want to do? We want to ensure we'll have change in legislations to have deem, if by a certain time that you have not responded, then we'll deem that you have no objection. But the work has already started. Consultations are ongoing by the consultant. And in fact, very shortly, they'll be going out to tender for the electronic platform, because this next phase can begin to be implemented, so that we can automate, obviously, the system. And so what you want at any time when you apply, if I am applying, then I can easily be given a unique number. And at any time, I can log in and know where or at probably whose office is my pending application stuck at. So at any time, you can log in and you'll be able to know, hey, I'm waiting on the municipality for their response. Although you're filing it here, because we will be the agency, there will be the one-stop agency for which you will come to have your application done. So you don't have to go all the way all around. You have that done right here, but the necessary agencies will have to work with us. So those are the sort of things that we're making a difference in and changing, because sometimes this plays a role in fairness, the ease of doing business too, and the persons from the diaspora and overseas who would like to come back here, and they're investing, in fact, and they have their application process that they want for their commercial activity. Then it is very easily, it's laid out as to what they have to do. So those are the sort of things that we're dealing with. The other delay we found in the system too was in terms of processing of titles and transports. And so we still do have a lot of outstanding titles and transports for areas or for persons who have completed their payoff. That's another area we are working in. And likewise, we also have a number of areas for which the ownership has not been sorted out, and that too, our team has been working to ensure that we are able to, in a fast-track way, have ownership be processed for individuals, new homeowners. And in addition to that, what we also found that we were operating a real estate business. What do I mean? There were a number of duplexes constructed, but the ministry, they didn't have a Ministry of Housing, obviously, because they linked the Ministry of Housing. It became a department under the Ministry of Communities. So that is how important they had placed this agency. So the Central Housing and Planning Authority, they constructed duplexes, but guess what? None of those persons could have received ownership or processed ownership, because our legislation does not cater for shared ownership, for townhouses, for condominiums, etc. So they were collecting rental from persons for those duplexes, which obviously was a shortcut method without addressing the elephant in the room. And what's the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is what we have done now. So the next parliament we will have the debate on the new condominium bill. It has already been laid, and so that debate will take place at the next parliamentary sitting. And so for those persons, this is another area where a lot of persons have been asking from the diaspora too, or from, that are living in various parts of the world, and how they want to contribute. And the persons who too will just want to buy a condominium space or a townhouse space, etc. The legislation the bill has been laid, so we're expecting to pass that at the appropriate.
Thank you, Minister. I think you've been very clear to the audience what you just said there, and I hope that everyone listened. They can look back at the program and listen to what Minister said. Very, very clear in what is to be done. Dr. Rose?
But you'd asked me I had started housing, I didn't get to water.
I know.
Okay, go to water, go ahead.
Well, in the area of water, let's start. We assessed what was taking place at Guyana Water. And right away, we recognized that the employment costs, you could not justify the high overhead costs for employment versus what they were doing and versus what they were delivering. So in the 5-year period, for example, employment costs for GWI went up by 110%. But yet you were having a reduced level of service delivering by GWI to customers. Outstanding matters of dealing of leakages, meter boxes were not being connected, money was being spent on lavish activities, not on the desirable activities of for GWI, huge money, for example, on Christmas parties, etc. Those were the sort of scenario we found at GWI. We assessed, as a result, we produced a 5-year plan, a 2021 to 2025 plan for GWI. And what will that plan entail? That plan will entail, obviously, that in the hinterland, we must achieve for all of the communities in the hinterland, no matter where they are, for all of those villagers to be able to receive access to potable water by 2025. What does this plan entail? So even on the hinterland, we have, as of the end of last year, it's only 60% coverage in the hinterland. By the end of this year, we will be about 75%, and in the last 2 years, we'll be able to push it even higher. What did we find on the coastline? On the coastline itself, we've committed that, first of all, we want to ensure that we increase our coverage to 100% full-time for everybody. And at the same time, what was not being addressed is the quality of water. You have two major issues there. The level of the service for the rich, as well as to the issue of the quality of the water. So no investment was being done on treatment plants. And so we have committed that we will invest heavily, and that is a costly exercise. We will invest heavily in the number in treatment plants for our coastline. So for example, by the end of this year, right now, there are only 55% of the coastline that receives water through treatment plants, through treated waters. So you can understand that the water will be high iron content in many locations, or the color is of a particular color. So by the end of this year, we will increase our coverage for treated water to about 63%. And we are committed by 2025 to have at least 95% of treated water on the coastline. We are committed to that. And you've seen the level of investment we are making in the water sector to address this. At the same time, we are also conducting a number of studies. We have started this because one of the ideas is also to tap into water source. And so, for example, I think you've seen it in the news recently. For example, the study has already started for utilization of the Hope Canal. And so if that proves successful, then what that'll be helpful is helpful for the entire East Coast. And so you can have a consolidated supply of water across the coast. At the same time, what we found was that we have heavy losses of water in the system. So we have also been working to reduce our non-revenue water. And the other problem we found is that GWI, the debt to GPL was increasing every year. This was not being paid. The GPL bills were not being paid. We have since we've gotten into office, we have since reduced that. In this year, for example, there are $6 billion, $2.6 billion catered for in this year. And over the last 2 years, if you take in the combined in from government to GWI for GPL, we're talking about 6 billion 2021 and 2.6 alone this year. So those are some of the scenarios that we found in terms of the water and the issues and the challenges we have in water, because they also were not spending money to stockpile. So we could not. We had to spend the initial period to buy materials, to buy pipes. We did not have those on the inventory. So when you have emergency, we could not necessarily respond in adequate manner.
Thank you, Dr. Rose.
Yes, Minister Croal. Now, I've known you for a while, and I know that you're honest and hardworking. But for the first time, I've seen where your ministry, you're the substantive or senior minister, and you have a junior minister in my good friend, Ms. Rodriguez. How do you all share responsibility?
We work, first of all, we have a management team and we meet frequently here. So we also plan our work. There are a lot of issues to be dealt with here. And, you know, you'll realize the housing and water sectors, it's a big one. And so there are a lot of issues that we have to deal with every day. And there absolutely enough work to be dealt with here and to deal and resolve issues. So what you'll find both of us are in the field, meeting persons, listening to individuals, listening to their concerns, and trying to resolve them. And that is how we work together as a team.
Good. Now, I think your goal for 2025 is to share or give out 50,000 house lots. Am I right?
By 2025, yes.
Yeah. Do you think you'll achieve that goal?
Absolutely.
And what assurances you will give to our listeners and the people of Guyana that you will?
Absolutely sure we will achieve that. And we have a plan. As I said, we have a yearly plan, and that is why this year we will be allocating 14,000, and that will take you up to our midpoint. And we're in the process. And why I'm also assured of this too is that we have an ongoing process of acquisition of lands, as also simultaneously as new road networks are open, as new highways are built, as new access roads are built, it also creates opportunities for opening of new lands. That, in addition, for example, agriculture, because it's not only housing, lands have competing sectors, right? But you have housing, you have commercial, you have industrial. These are all the necessities for our state. We're absolutely assured, yes, we will be able to deliver on that. I also want to let you know, it's not only will be house lots, we will also be building houses. It has started and it's an ongoing process.
How many you intend to build by 2025 houses?
We want to build at least 22,000 by 2025.
Okay. Now, here's a tricky question. It is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, as house lots are given out based on 3 categories: high income, middle income, and low income. Why not give out house lots based on the number of people in the family?
Well, we have to start somewhere. And so, well, it's 4. We have low, moderate, middle, and high. And
okay, low, okay.
So it's based on their income bracket, because we have to establish some sort of criteria. And may I make this additional point? When that member of the family reaches 21, in their own right, they can apply for house lot. So the age for application, first of all, is 21, that when you can come into our system. But where you have the differentiation is that if I have a child who's 21 and that child would like to apply on their own, that they're allowed to. But with our system, the husband and wife, that's where the difference is, because that union is recognized as one.
How many bedrooms are in a low-income house as compared to a high-income house?
All right. So the high-income houses, we have what we call them the young professionals. So far, we have built 2 models. We have the flat and we have the elevated. The elevated, there are 3 bedrooms. The elevated is with 2,200 square feet. The flat is 1,600. Then we also have the low-income houses and the moderate. The moderate, these are 2 bedrooms. They're different in obviously because they're about 600 square feet. And then you also have the low income that can be 1 or 2 bedroom in that case.
When you took over the Ministry of Health, there was a huge backlog of house lots being, people have applied and they're not getting house lots. How far did that go back to, and where are you today?
So the Ministry of Housing instead Health. But let me give you.
Sorry,
I know what you mean. I'm just teasing you. Let me give you a scenario. And one of the things that I've seen is that because of the success story in housing, you also have, because don't forget, while we're allocating, we still have persons who are applying. And that is where the bottom line remains. So, for example, in this year alone, 4 months, let's use 4 months, we have 4,000 new applicants. Last year, 11,000 new applicants, persons who have applied in the last year. So if you combine the two, we have about 15,000 plus for 2021 to now that have applied for house lot. Bearing in mind, and bear that in mind, that we met a system of 70,000 and we're committed to allocating 50,000.
Okay. How long does it take one to apply for a house lot? Let's say I apply for a house lot today, May 9th. When would you think I'll get that house lot?
Well, for us, we try to address those persons who are within the system. I mean, I do read a lot of the social media comments or even the newsprint comments, and you will always have someone whenever, especially when we have a dream realized activity. So whenever we have a dream realized activity and there's the showcase of someone who got through, there's always someone who's posting at the bottom that to say that they are waiting X time. And at the end of the day, because of the demand that is there, and because the supply will obviously be less than the demand, there will always be someone who feels that we have not addressed them. But we are addressing persons who are waiting in the system, and certainly once the information is relevant, when I say relevant, meaning your telephone number is up to date, your address remains as what we have in the system, so that when we are ready to call you, certainly you will be addressed at the appropriate time. But I also want to make this observation, this point that having observed too, when I meet persons, a member of the public, there have been many instances where persons have been called from one point in time for an allocation. But simply because of probably where they were being offered, they did not take up that offer. And so they will remain in the system as pending applicants. So sometimes I see persons, they come with a letter and I would see a note on it to say, well, back then, or the prior years, recommended for parfait, whatever's the case. But that person didn't take up the offer because they didn't want to go over into Region 3, over the river. And in some cases, persons want to remain close by. They say that their family is right here in Georgetown and they want to remain close by as far as possible. But we have to move away from that mindset. At the end of the day, it is where the lands are available. That is what we're going to offer. But we're not just offering lands when we're offering you the land, but we are also developing these areas into housing schemes. So there will be amenities that will be available for residential purposes. And so even in our zoning, we cater for future expansion, whether it's for educational, health facilities, etc. I'll give you a case in point. Ordinance Fortlands, New Amsterdam. We're on another phase there. In fact, we're about to build 100 houses there. 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, the Region 6 authorities, they have applied to Central Housing for a portion of land to build a health center within Ordinance Fortlands. We were able to find the land because we had kept space for such expansion. East Bank, there is a new secondary school that is being constructed. We are able to find land for those sort of development because as part of our zoning, we cater for schooling and expansion because we take into consideration the population, targeted population in terms of households, And that is why we can able to do zoning. And so zoning becomes very important as we move forward as a country too. Sometimes persons think, because they have the land, they do what they like, So we have to have some discipline too.
You said you've given out over 11,000 house lots in the last 18 months.
Correct.
Where have you given out the most? I know Region 4 is most populated, but Region 4, I think, is running out of land as we speak.
Yeah, so I can probably let me give you some exact figures of our allocation exercise for the 18 months. I can give you some exact areas. And inclusive of that, well, not Region 4 alone. So for example, we have Region 2 on the naming and charity. On the naming phase 4, and in charity, there are two areas, one called Buxton and the other called St. Joseph. So that's for Region 2, and we're doing the infrastructure work as I speak. And then you have in Region 3, we allocated in Anna Katrina, Edinburgh, Cornelia Ida, and Metamersburg. We have allocated over 1,700 house lots there since we came into office. Stureville, we allocated in Stureville. So in Region 3, for example, we did about 2,000 allocations since we came into office. Region 4, which you will expect will have the bigger numbers, you have about 6,000 that were allocated in Region 4. These include, for example, parts of Annandale, Cummings. Well, there's another portion, not where the houses are constructed, but we completed the allocation in a area called 1767 in Cummings Lodge. Then you also have Vigilance, Bladenhall, Strathspey, LBI, La Reconnaissance. This is a new area on the East Coast. We did over 1,200 allocations there. Prospect, Great Diamond, Little Diamond, Golden Grove, another block in Great Diamond, another block in Golden Grove. So as well, so roughly about 6,000 plus we did there. Then you had in Region 5 at an area called Baltiok. In Region 5, we have available there. Region 9, an area called Track CHPL Letem. We did about 400 allocations there. And do not forget, we also did in Region 10, Amelia's Ward, for another 400. So you see there's quite a spread. And so some of the regions that you have not heard about is that we are also acquiring land, and it's an ongoing process. And those are part of our future expansion.
I want to come back to Amelia's Ward just now, but what about Ogle? Do you all plan to give out house lots at Ogle?
Ogle, as far as I know, Ogle is part of a massive development. And so even recently, you would have recognized we had an expression of interest. And so that would include, and they're going through an evaluation process, and that process is closed, and so we see some lands there. But in terms of giving out for residential purpose at this point in time, on our scheme of things, not on the cards right now.
Okay, coming back to Amelia's Ward, I read somewhere over the weekend that the government bulldozed some of the houses there, or squatters or whosoever there, because they want to build an access road. Can you enlighten the public on that, what happened there?
Sure, I can. I actually took up my morning today, well, you'll recognize because of what happened over the weekend. So let's start, let's speak a little about Region 10. First of all, we have a comprehensive plan for the development of Region 10 in the area of housing. These include both the construction of houses, as well as I've said to you, we already recently, or last year, we allocated 400 house lots. And that was done for an area in Amelia's Ward. Well, what you've had in the Region 10 case is encouraged squatting. And so persons, political operatives from the APNU, from the PNC, AFC, has been encouraging persons to occupy lands and willy-nilly. We have been engaging persons within Amelia's wards for a prolonged period. And this started from December 2020. Ever since when we went to the area, we have identified that Amelia's ward will be catered for expansion and for improvement in infrastructure to be developed into a comprehensive housing scheme. What happened since is, as I said, because knowing that there will be future development, then you had squatting took place. So as a result, after that, we had subsequently many engagements. In fact, I visited that area. Last year, my colleague visited that area. And even 1 week after visiting, we had land grabbing where persons were even moving the boundary where they put their fence. They were moving that to increase the area acreage that they want for the size of their lands. And we said to them, we gave that commitment ever since, that we have taken a cognizant, we have done what is called an occupational survey of the entire area. So we know what we met. We have pictures of what we met. And maybe I'll just show you an example in a few minutes. We know what we met. But yet, you have still continue, knowing fully well that the government plans to address and the government plans to regularize. We gave a commitment. We will even regularize some of those persons who squatted once they follow the outline process of having an application in the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Because by having that application process, then you can do that pre-check or that pre-screening to know if that individual can be able to qualify for a house lot eventually. They've been told all of that. Even in February, the CEO of CHPA visited that area, engaged them, and all were committed. They were told, please do not build further, because once we have a massive plan for the area, there has to be alignment. The road has to pass somewhere. And you'll recognize once you have ad hoc squatting or irregular occupancy, when you're doing the alignment for the access road, more than likely somebody will be falling in the path of the road. What you had, the incident last week was only to address access to the area so the contractors can start working. Right now, we have 3 contracts that are signed to commence infrastructure development in Amelia's ward to the tune of $364 million. This is the very phase 4 for which we have allocated house lots. So this is for their development. We have, as I said, we have a plan to develop the area. We are developing it into a complete housing scheme, which will include, therefore, cater for eventual expansion for health facilities, educational facilities, and all other public spaces that come with an housing scheme. That is part of the plan. We want the people of Region 10 to also have a better life. And that is what I'm also encouraging the political leaders of the APN who say that they so love the people of Region 10, that they also must encourage all those individuals to do the right thing. And in addition to that, let me say this, our president very early had an outreach to Linden sometime in January 2021. And in that, provided an elaborate plan for Region 10. In all that also committed the construction of houses for people of Region 10, especially targeting, because there's a huge medical fraternity in Region 10, targeting our teachers, targeting our engineers, targeting our professionals, young professionals, all of those. And so, we have been accused of not catering for young people and not looking out for young people. Here's an example of how we're looking out for those young people, because we are creating an enabling environment. We started the construction of 40 houses, investing close to $300 million. By the end of this week, 20 of those houses will be allocated, because it's complete, will be allocated to the very persons from Region 10. They are going to be the beneficiaries. And the issue of the squatting in Region 10 is not anything new. Look, this afternoon, somebody sent me 2 articles where the former mayor for Region 10, and this was in an article, and I quote, this is September 28, 2017. Lindeners urged to desist from squatting. This was a call made by the then mayor, Collin. Then I saw another article by the former but this one is in Kaitor News, where the former minister then, and who was also from Linden, Valerie Patterson, Haywood, illegal occupation of Linden house lots. The minister promises to let police intervene to evict squatters who refuse to move. This was in 2017. And in the very Amelia's watch, that's why I say they were being encouraged. But I want to say to you that more houses right now, we are doing the preparatory work for land clearance, for preparation for another area for construction of young professional houses. And we are also in this very area that they're blocking, we are also going to be constructing houses there. But I have good news for you. There are about 16, a delegation of 16 this afternoon would have engaged again, because as I said, there was a process at how we arrived to this point. And as a result, they've now decided that they're going to work with Central Housing and Planning Authority. And so the CEO of Central Housing and Planning Authority met with a delegation of 16 of them, so six of those persons, and it has been amicably dealt with. But I also want to say, we went further to commit that once any one of those persons who fall within the alignment that will be affected, that we will provide an opportunity to relocate them. All of that were committed. But as I said, they were encouraged and they were led, especially by persons like the MP Figueroa and others. And at the end of the day, they're stemming development for the people of Region 10. And that is what it is. When we build houses, on those 40 houses alone, there were a minimum of 200 employment opportunities were created. Minimum, because on average, a household, it's about 5 minimum. And I'm just giving you conservative figure. Think about even now with construction for their own development, what will take place. And so I think they'll come around to understand that we want to work with them. But we are at a stage now, the contractors are ready. They're ready to move in. They already mobilized. Contracts have been signed. This is for the development of Amelia Ward. And, I find it also hypocritical for, I see words such as like cockroaches, etc., being used. Well, may I be allowed to give you a little insight of what took place in Region 10 in the area of housing just prior. I said to you that we allocated 400 house lots last year. One walk. The total allocations to Region 10, or for so love the last government who claims that they own the people of Linden and they so love the people of Linden. In 5 years, 359 allocations were done in 5 years for the people of Region 10 by the APNU AFC government. What we did one walk, we allocated 400 house slots, and the scheme that we're developing now, where we have those contracts signed that I referred to in the phase 4, is to commence infrastructure work that catered for a total of 600 plus lots in that area, because you'll have to cater for other housing development, public facilities, etc. So that is the scenario that has played out in Region 10, and it is not our intention as a government, as a ministry, or as an agency for CHPA. It is not our intention to be just driving around and knocking down infrastructure buildings. But we want to encourage everyone to do the right thing. We have a department that deals specifically with community development, that engages communities. So when they go into the area, they take stock of what is taking place there, an occupational survey, and what they do, they address it. We have similar challenges. I can give you one example right now, but you don't see the similar response because, as I said, this one was led. And there's an area in Lenora called Grassfield. Those persons, a small area, but there are some cattle owners who have been growing grass there, but it falls within an area where we're expanding for infrastructure work now. They've met with our team, they have agreed, we have identified a relocated area, and we're moving in a smooth process. That is how it goes. Once you are willing to engage with us, we will help you. We have been doing a lot of work behind the scene. And so even recently, I've seen attempts to blow the issue at where we have the 4-lane expansion that is taking place, the next phase, that is phase 2, where from Echoes, where to Great Diamond, this current works are ongoing. We have one area that is under question for where we have a similar issue. And again, when it comes to the politics, this is the buffer that falls between Herstelling and Mocha. And that area has an alignment about 34 infrastructure on the facility, on the land reserve. It's a land reserve. It was never catered for expansion. So they have never been helped or addressed in a meaningful way for infrastructure development, for formal electricity or water. It was never intended for that. So there's where the alignment falls. There, as I said, there are 34. We have engaged. I went in the initial period. I engaged those persons. We committed to them. We will work with them. We will move them. And we have even identified an area, or 2 areas, in fact, because I said it's 34, where it's even in a higher priced zoning area within Herstelling and Farm. We have 28 of them have already started building in their new location, because how we address this is that through the formal mechanism, there was evaluation done, there were compensatory packages done, everything in the formal way, but yet you have a few, again by politics, by telling them do not move. But we want development for everybody, and the government is a fair government, and this government will bring development for all the people of Ghana.
Thank you, Minister. We're going to go on a break now, Charles.
Yeah, we take a short commercial break and then we come back. Thanks, Minister.
Guyana Independence is in May, and Travelspan has the cheapest fares. Fly with non-stop and direct flights to Guyana on American, JetBlue, or Caribbean Airlines. Fares start from $185 one-way and $414 round-trip to Guyana. And from Guyana, one-way fares start from $251 and round-trip from $456. These are non-stop and direct flights to and from Guyana. Call Travelspan for these cheap fares. In the U.S., call 718-845-0437. In Georgetown and West Coast Demerara, call 227-1701. And in Berbice, call 337-4287. Travelspan is serving the community for over 27 years, with offices in Queens, Georgetown, Berbice, West Coast Demerara, and Trinidad. When you purchase at one office, you can reconfirm your flight at any other Travelspan office for all your convenience. Call Travelspan today and book your flights now.
Is when this wedding got done? Right now my belly burning for the 7 curry. But them fancy people just call it vegetarian food. I just call it 7 curry.
Order your 7 curry or vegetarian box today from allfromonesupplier.com and get free shipping throughout the U.S. The 2022 competition is in Cancun on July 28th to August 1st. Who is going? The Duck and the Curry going for sure, plus Raymond Ramnarine, Terry G, young upcoming dancer, and singer Ariana, Randy Reckless, and the Reckless Tassa Group. The competition for the best tasting duck is in Cancun for 2022. Friends and families, make this a reunion.
Bring it down, diddy down, down, ding. Bring it, diggy, down, down, ding. Bring it down, diddy down, ding. Hey yo, my sweet side, say I'm addicted to you.
Family and friends meet up in Cancun on July 28th. Enjoy your culture, your music, and your duck. For more info, call Travelspan at 21224308865, that is 21224308865. In Canada, call 64755762200. In Trinidad, call Amerals at 6451604. And in Guyana, 2271701, or visit us at travelspan.com.
जन्म जन्म का साथ है तुम्हारा हमारा.
Bollywood on the Beach is a family and friends event with Bollywood Entertainment. July 14th to the 18th, enjoy a 5 days and 4 nights all-inclusive vacation with your family and friends and your culture. Performers from India, Pakistan, Trinidad and Guyana will be live at the resorts with your favorite Bollywood songs. In Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, stay in the family section or in the adults-only section and enjoy over 12 restaurants, 11 bars, 7 pools, play areas, spas, and exclusive beach area. Your all-inclusive Bollywood on the Beach vacation is from $1,095 per person, which includes your airfare, transfer, hotel, and all you can eat and drink. Make it a family and friends reunion in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Flights available from all U.S. cities, Canada, Trinidad, and Guyana. For rates, date, and more info, call Travelspan at 21224308865. In Canada, call 64755762200. In Trinidad, call Amerals at 6451604. And in Guyana, 2271701, or visit us at travelspan.com. Looking for a reliable contractor? Look no further. Call Singh's Construction today. At Singh's Construction, they can cover all your jobs, interior and exterior. We cover painting, bathrooms, kitchen, doors, windows, tiles, brick, decks, flooring, and concrete. Call Naresh Singh today for your free quote at 9172384180. That's 9172384180.
Folks, the Nest Restaurant is the place to dine for Guyanese and Caribbean dishes. It is the best restaurant in Queens. The staff is courteous, and Dave, the owner, is always there to welcome you. So for a memorable dining experience, visit the Nest Restaurant located at 12717 101 Avenue, South Richmond Hill. Go and make a reservation today, or takeout. Call 718-847-4035.
Welcome back to our audience as we have the Honourable Minister of Housing and Water, Mr. Collin Croal. Minister, I know we want to quickly, I know we have limited time, if you don't mind, if you can, I know you have been very elaborate in your answers, and I think it's very clear what you're saying. A house lot, what's the average dimension of a house lot?
So the house lot, they vary, because it comes about to when we are having our zoning happening and or planning, because we have to take into consideration of, first of all, 1, the area, 2, knowing what's the area, where's the area, what do we plan to have it as? Is it a high income area? We have to do high, moderate, or middle, and some low income. And so the size of the lot will vary in accordance of that. And secondly, that is why you will not find the cost of a lot at one location on the East Coast necessarily being the same, for example, for a middle income on the East Bank, because they'll be considered different, their location. So the size varies.
So in terms of infrastructural work, and you mentioned 4 categories of persons, the low income, the middle income, and so on, and high income. Does the quality of the work changes based on the different allocation for low income to high income? The quality of the work in infrastructure work, the roads, the water, and so on.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. All it does, you receive the same level of infrastructure.
Okay, excellent. Well, Minister, you know,
and service utility.
Yeah, well, Minister, you know, there have been a lot of reports on substandard work, and I know that has been happening for years and years and years. It didn't happen only 2 years ago. What is your ministry doing to ensure that the quality of the work is actually improved so the road don't break up 6 months after, or or those things is flooding because the drainage is bad and so on.
Well, we have a dedicated project team, and a highly competent project team, because I can tell you, first of all, you will not find, in our case, consultancy services for infrastructure, for design. You won't find us advertising for such. Those things are all done in-house. So first of all, when you check the competent team that we have from our project department, they save the taxpayers billions of dollars, probably running into $1 billion at least, millions at least. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we have in each one of these projects, when they are going, we have clerk of works, we have engineers that have various responsibilities. So it's not necessary that is one person is taxed for the entire region, because obviously monitoring will become difficult. And so they're out there or continually checking the work that for what the contract has been contracted for. Let me clarify. Right?
But has any contractor in your memory been prosecuted for substandard work or work taken away from them?
We have had here, yes, since I'm in office, yes, we have had works terminated for contractors who cannot perform. Yes, we have had termination.
Okay.
So,
Minister, I know you
we have had. I also want to let you know, we also have the mechanism of liquidated damages being applied once they do not perform in the time specified, the approval time for the duration of the work. We do apply liquidated damages, certainly.
Minister, when you were here in New York, there was a meeting and someone mentioned to you when they put in the US number in the application, it was rejected. Were you able to look at that?
Yeah, I sent it to the IT department. I didn't check to see if they've made it necessary, but I sent it on. I noted on my phone. Sometimes when persons are speaking to me, they see me on my phone and they think it's this. They're actually noting the issue, because I don't want to rely on my memory alone. So I utilize the notes in my phone a lot. So yes, I passed it on though.
And Minister, I don't think I'm not clear as well, but there are 1,000 Guyanese who live overseas who would want to apply for a house lot. Can you tell them clearly what they need to do if they want a house lot in Guyana?
But let's start though. What you are living overseas, we have to, first of all, let's deal with the persons who are here. That's the first thing. However, who are the beneficiaries? Who can benefit from the house lot? Once you're Guyanese, you can't benefit. And this is where some of the recent challenges are, whereby we may be calling an individual at the time of calling them, or when we have a dream realize activity, they're probably not around. And then they come back into the country and they complain they have not been dealt with. But then we indicate to them, we called you. But, it's on, for me personally, we have two aspects. We have where we're encouraging persons to come back home. When you come back home, you can apply on your migrant status, etc., and we will deal with you. But then we also have to hear for persons who are living here. We have to also address their needs. So it's, for me personally, it's unfair. It's for kind of
dipping. But Minister, a lot of Guyanese who live overseas, they're reasonable off, and they can maybe do a little better than our brothers and sisters back home. Are there plans to develop housing schemes for private individuals, and those houses can be sold to Guyanese who want to come back home?
But this is the other aspect. We also have to allow the private sector to be their own driver too. So there's nothing preventing persons from engaging in the private sector. They are private landowners too, right? Not only the government owns land, and so there are opportunities for them to be able to engage private landowners and have an arrangement, develop those areas, sell those lots or the houses, whichever is the case. So private development is also encouraged, but except the recent expression of interest, which I said to you earlier that we had, which is being addressed. We have not processed any others. All the others have been for houses that we are constructing under the Ministry of Housing and Water, which we are encouraging because we want to make this as part of the home ownership, but it is also about encouraging affordable housing. And that is why we have been working closely with the banks, and the banks have been responding because the banks have seen and understand, and they share our vision. They've been coming to our activities too. So we invite them to our activities, so they're there to interact, and they have an appreciation of what we plan in the housing sector. So much so now that the banks are competing to see how they can increase their portfolio. I'll give you another example. So you have the houses that are being built through us. Those beneficiaries, by and large, of course, they come through our system, but the arrangement, we send those persons on to the bank, but there's a pre-qualifying criteria. They engage the bank will tell them if they can pre-qualify for that type of housing, whatever, if that's the case, and then it goes through the process. That's one. You also have, don't forget, now that I spoke to you about 11,000, but of that, you have about, starting now, because we have already started to show persons for the areas that we did infrastructure work last year, that you have at least 10,000 lots that will be coming into the system for which persons own those lots, and in their own individual way, they will be acquiring loan, more than likely, majority of to build houses. So that's another portfolio for the bank, and they've been aggressively pursuing that. And so the banks have been responding, and likewise as a government, we have recognized that too. And so there are huge opportunities for the construction sector, and recognizing that too. That is why you see recently you had the removal of the VAT on cement, and there are a lot of policy mechanisms that have been made since we come into office that sometimes I think we probably don't speak about often. For example, there was a 2% withholding tax for residential contractors. We removed that. That was there during the previous government tenure. We lowered, first of all, the excise tax, and you'll understand the correlation here. For gas, we moved from 20 to 10, and then obviously now it's 0. That alone, because that helps the construction sector too, because obviously the transportation that directly affected. We have recently, as I said to you, the removal of VAT on cement. These are all things that help in terms of our sector.
Minister, I know Guyanese everybody like to build their individual own design of their house. Is there part of your ministry where you give a settlement area, a housing area? These are the design that you will build in this area. Is the ministry looking at that way, or just build what you want?
No, well, for those individual lots, those who receive their lots, they build whatever they would like. Well, of course, in keeping with the bylaws in terms of how many feet from the fence, etc. So they are built in accordance of their own design that they love.
Okay.
The models that we have that for our housing, so far, what it is, the predetermined models, because we also try to keep the cost. We are trying to keep the cost consistent, and the cost of the houses, despite the other variables increasing, our cost for houses have not increased.
And what's the cost of the house?
But there are. So, for example, the elevated young professionals that we spoke about, that's about $100,000 US for those. And that's elevated, that's upstairs, that's 2,200 square feet. You have, for example, the flat, the young professional, so that is about $65,000 US dollars. The low income, for example, that's $5.5 million dollars. And so it is being kept consistent. But I also want to make this point, which maybe if we can spend some time. July 22nd to 24th, we'll be hosting, you'll have the return of the Building Expo. The Building Expo will allow and provide an opportunity for our sector, for exposure for a number of persons in our sector, but also to see on display adaptive technology. So in addition to the demonstration for our houses, we also have a few houses that will be on demonstration for which we have signed MOU for them to commence construction process. So we do have a few persons who are coming in the system that will be constructing houses, and even adaptable houses in terms, for example, one of the houses that will be on display takes into consideration with the compressing of the for the garbage. They're doing a compost and they're compressing it. So they have that design that they want to bring to the table. So you'll see different technologies too in terms of adaptable for our country. And so this is what Expos does. And so we are encouraging anyone who wants to participate. You can go to our website at buildingexpo.gy to get more information. And even if you know anyone who wants
and where will it Expo be? Where in Guyana?
It will be held at the Guyana National Stadium, simply because the space that we need, right? So, yeah.
Minister,
so
I know your government is determined to give 50,000 house lot, which is a remarkable goal. But I mentioned to you earlier in an earlier program, like what Booker's did. Booker set up the sugar industry, and around that industry, they build the houses for the workers. Are we just giving away house lots? Or are we looking at future industries where they might be located and then develop housing in those areas so people don't have to travel too far from home to work? Is that part of the consideration?
Well, that is one variable, but the reality sometimes is also that we have to take in consideration the availability. And so that is why we are also working on road networking, accessibility. Because, for example, you would have heard the president, if you've listened to the speech that the president made at our commissioning of this 4-lane, the one from Mandela to Eccles, will also include now another road on the East Coast, for example, which will create a hub for commercial activities, etc. But we have future expansion for housing on the East Coast. So right away, you'll have opportunities for employment nearby. But sometimes the reality is it's based on availability.
Yeah, Minister, I know I mentioned this to you before. With the oil and gas sector coming on board, will the new housing scheme be equipped with gas lines for gas to flow whenever that becomes available?
I know we had that discussion last week at the engagement we had overseas, but it's not something we haven't reached to that aspect as yet. And so, but maybe, futuristically, obviously, these are things that we'll have to take into consideration with developing of new areas, and we'll have to start somewhere. So, sometime, for example, those developers, because government, we're constrained also by. We have to take into consideration. We have to balance our resources too, and it's not housing alone. It's a lot of competing sectors, right? But private developers too this is something that they can take on board in developing their model housing areas, etc. And no doubt it's something that they can look to on the EOIs that we have that I mentioned to you, for which is going to.
Because as you know, Minister, the gas line have to go a little deeper because to resist any vibration and so on. And as you know, here in New York and around North America, those lines run on the road, along the roadside deep down.
You don't see anything up in the area.
So I think that might be something to do. And Dr. Rose?
Noted.
Okay. Minister Croal, President Ali, when he was the Minister of Housing, his dream was to establish a new city called Silica City. And I think it was last week or the week before, you addressed the United Nations General Assembly on Guyana's housing program and plans for the development of Silica City. Tell us about that.
Well, it was the president, when he was minister, his dream then, but I can tell you, it's very close to fruition to commence work in that regard. So the first phase will entail the construction of the golf course, and you'll have some houses that surround that course, because we have to start somewhere. The first phase will see about 3,000 plus acres of land being developed in the first phase for the Silica City. So that's why I say it is much more than just a dream now. It's putting all the bits together. to start that process. So we are engaging GLSC in terms of the land, because GLSC, there are also leases on that area of the Suez Dike for which will be affected, for which Guyana Lands and Survey Commission, that is, will have to address. But we're right now in the process of doing the formal aspect of getting those land over to Central Housing and Planning Authority. So that is on course, because we have the design, we have an initial design already, I can tell you that. And its commencement will be sooner, very soon, rather than later.
I have a quick question for you. Let's say low-cost housing. How many bedrooms? 2 bedrooms?
Correct.
Can someone add to that if they want to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So in fact, so if you go to the East Bank, where you see some of those houses were constructed prior, you will see a lot of persons expanded to the back, or they even went up. Yes. As they become, because this is the thing about it. At the end of the day, the ownership goes to you. Your ownership is processed for your land and your property, that goes to you.
Okay. Now I want to turn to water.
So
water.
Oh, water. Oh, sure.
The previous government has spent a lot of money on providing water throughout the country. This government has been doing the same thing with investments. Now, my first question to you is this. Are the fire hydrants in Georgetown fully operational?
Right. So we had some realignment in terms of, there's actually a committee that is involved, and the fire hydrants are now under the purview of the Guyana Fire Service, which falls under, obviously the agency on the Ministry of Home Affairs. And there have been aggressively reactivation of all hydrants in Georgetown to ensure that they're functional. And yes, many of them have been repaired, and it's an ongoing process to start expanding that to put them in other areas. So yes, if you drive around Georgetown, by now you'll find all of those hydrants are working, and more are those that are damaged are being repaired. But one of the things that we found, and in fact, His Excellency was the one who called the meeting, and so we found that there were some gray areas, etc. So we're very clear in whose responsibility the hydrants will be falling on.
Are they?
Of course, Guyana Watering still plays a role in terms of any support, because they have to provide the water to the networking, right?
Are there fire hydrants in other townships, let's say for Linden and New Amsterdam and so forth?
So there are plans. So I sit on that committee, so that's why I can tell you. So we have, as I said, we have to start somewhere. So the first thing we did was start here, start central, right, fix what is here. And the intention, we're moving outwards to ensure, obviously, the towns all get hydrants. Yes, it is on stream. The regional, it's going to be expanded to the regional. It's an ongoing process.
Now,
and in fact, what I may add is that because we have a local producer for those hydrants, so it saves a lot of costs rather than the imported ones.
I'm from the quarantine, which you know. And when I'm up there, sometimes for a day or two, no water. None whatsoever. And the people are told the government has to shut down the system because to save oil. Because apparently the pump is being run by oil, with oil.
I absolutely find that strange. One of the issues that we've been having is that because on the coastline, our system is connected to the electrical grid. So if you have fluctuation, and let me speak specifically for Berbice, because we've had about 3 engagements chaired by the Prime Minister, because GPL falls under his purview. So we have addressed Berbice because we have had challenges with the consistency of the electricity in Berbice. So it's not that they had outage, but there's fluctuation. And so by now we have rectified that. In this year budget too, we have it's going through the procurement process. There's another generator that Guyana Watering is buying to be sent to Berbice, just in case the need arises that you have to send to any one of the major pumping stations. In addition to that, we have one or two of the wells that were down became down. Probably in another 2 weeks or a week, maybe in a week, we have the rig that will be moving from Parika back to go to Berbice to commence the drilling of a new well at Kilcoy. And so we have plans for there. And the other complaint that we've been having too is in Blackbush.
Right.
And so, right, and Blackbush has had its challenges, but one of which concerns is because you have residential, and then you also have the whole issue about all those machinery operating for the rice field, etc. So the coexistence has created some problems. Sometimes there are damages to pipe, but we have to drill another well in Blackbush. In fact, that was one of the major issues that came out from the recent outreach.
Don't drill too deep in Blackbush. I was told Blackbush has oil. Now, let me ask you this question. Years ago, I was told that water in Georgetown used to go to the second floor, the third floor. There was no need for black tanks. I don't know when black tanks came in. It had to be sometime in the 80s or the late 70s. But as the pressure in Georgetown and other areas increased, water pressure.
So we are addressing that actually in a major way. So for example, because many of those transmission lines, that's one of the major issues that we found, money was not being spent to change them. So you have a main one that runs from Shelter Belt that goes all the way to Bank of Ghana by the Senator.
Right.
You visit frequently, so you will know every now and then there's always some leakage there underneath there.
Right.
Then we had another main that ran from the Coffee Square that goes all the way to Mandela. We have since changed that. This year, in fact, last week, we received a no objection for the contract to be awarded. Mm-hmm. And so work will commence within a month in a major way on the Church Street to change the transmission line that will eventually reach to Water Street. And we will, as an emergency, we will also be addressing that area around Bank of Guyana, because we have the capacity to increase the pressure, but we can't. Anytime we increase it further from what it is now, there will be rupture. We also had when I got into office, we had the changing of the transmission line from Shelter Belt that ran to Lamaha Street. That one went through Bel Air Park. So that was another one. And so all in all, once this one is completed from on Church Street, in central Georgetown, we will be able to increase the pressure. At this time is not ability, but not from the well itself or from the generate pump house, but it's actually for the pipe to be changed. These are pipes, obviously, century old.
So the new houses being built now, do they need water tanks, or the pressure is going up to the floor?
So all the new areas, and that is why we are drilling wells to respond. So last week I visited, for example, Providence.
Right.
Providence is one such area where they have had developed even before I came into office in the last President Ali tenure. And so the demand is there now because more persons are occupying these areas because we're doing more infrastructure work. And so as the time goes by, we'll have to drill more wells. But we're hoping that it will reach to a level of service to upstairs that we can say it's satisfied. But it's an ongoing process, and we're doing this as quickly as possible.
Now, a lot of new wells are being drilled in Guyana throughout the coast, from coast to coast. I've been reading it in papers and so forth. Now, how long does it take for a well to be drilled? Is there a time span? Do you know?
So we have two ways the wells are being drilled. We have in-house because we have rigs. We have a hinterland rig and we have a coastland rig. That's a TWI. And we also contract out those services. And so a physical aspect of if you're using the physical rig, that can take probably only 2 weeks. But then you have to put the casings and it can take time. But there are times when you're doing this and sometimes it it failed. And then you have to drill at another spot. This is part of drilling. It's an ongoing process. And so that's why we don't, until we can prove that it is successful, then we announce. So like in the case of Providence, I could have said that definitively because we know it is successful. They had to drill it twice in any case. Then there are some areas where you try to drill and you have challenges because the water, the table is not as probably as what you expect. But we have better technologies now so that can test, and you'll know most likely where you can map out and where you should likelihood that you'll have a good pressure or good output for water. I'll give you another example, Rika Back. That's one area because over the years they have going on, this is going back because there are a lot of farmers down that way. There's a population in the back. I don't think persons realize how many people live there. So if you go down Hubu, going down at the back there, we've just drilled a new well. They're now doing, the contract has been awarded last week to do the materials for the connection, etc. Because we drilled that in-house. And so even there we'll have increased pressure. So we're working hand in hand. Equally important is the role that is played by Central Housing and Planning Authority, because only 2 weeks ago, we always have periodical meetings, both agencies, because CHPA plans keep changing too, changing in a positive way, meaning increased areas. So GWI also has to respond in their thinking and in their planning, because it is their technical guidance will tell us if we need to put a well here or if we need to put a well there or what type of well, etc., or where best to place it, because they have to take into consideration our intended potential population size for that area, and so that they can advise us. So both agencies work together. I can let you know.
Minister, I know we are running out of time. Doc, we are running out of time now.
Yeah,
Quickly.
I just want to ask you one question. Building codes in Guyana, are they being monitored? How effective are those building codes?
Well, they have building codes. In fact, our board, the Central Housing and Planning Authority, are guided in their approval process of when the certain parameters that they have to work with when they're making their decisions in terms of whether to approve a request or not. So they do have parameters. They are through the standard bureau. You also have that. But it is something too that we're looking at that we can extensively discuss in much more detail, because as you have higher rising buildings are expected to come on stream, etc. Obviously, the thinking process also has to evolve. And then Minister Ben has been speaking about this ad nauseum to ensure that all buildings have, for example, as simple as sprinklers as a minimum, as part of their fire prevention. These are the sort of things that they have to look for. But the local authorities have to evolve too and respond, because they have a major role to play in approvals within their area.
Minister,
Thank you, Minister. We're coming to the end of the program. Charles?
Minister, quickly, I mean, in the days of old, village had a water tank, and then the water will go up in the tank and natural flow into the village. Are you considering that, or that's out of the picture?
We have only been doing that for the hinterland.
Okay, nothing because at Lagrange, I know Lagrange, we had a tank there, and that was natural flow into the village.
No, we've evolved that with that on the coast, but in the hinterland, we use the gravity flow.
The other thing, Minister, I saw in today's paper, Walton Hall Paradise, you and the Attorney General was giving transport to those residents who are living there for ages. I know Traspay, a couple of years ago, the PP government awarded transport to those lands to the people who were there like 50 years. Are there other areas in the country where you're going to issue transport where the people has been there for generation?
That exercise that you saw in the papers is actually to address, yes, the ownership. We did not give it there, but we met them to outline the process how we'll arrive at to be able to finally provide ownership for them. In one area, it was a co-op. In another area, it was where persons eventually lived. They were not captured on the plan, so they were on the reserve. And so there are different modalities that have to be done to ensure that we have the area recognized, and there's a process, because valuation also costs, to do valuation exercises costs money, and so that sometimes is the bugbear. But we are working to ensure that we try to fix all those areas that have, for me, it's like nuances over the years, because now more than ever, persons recognize the importance of having your document to signal the ownership.
Do you know where else Minister in Guyana might have that problem?
Yeah, they do have some areas, for example, that fall within sugar welfare, etc. I can spend a half-hour program on that alone.
Minister, we want to thank you so much for spending your evening with us. You have been very, very clear in your presentation, and I hope our viewers listen to you and understand that the government of President Ali is really trying his best, and he has made promises. And I believe with you being there and what you have identified tonight, you have told us, I think the people in Guyana is in good hands for you being the Minister of Housing and Water. Minister, anything in closing?
Thank you for having me, and to let you know that as a government, we will work for all the people of Guyana, and all the ministers of this President Ali government has one thing. We have one thing in common, and that is we want to see betterment for our people too. And so we're expending all energies possible to ensure that this is done. And that is why you will find us as a government, we are not bound in the office, but we try to be with the persons in the field to directly be involved in helping to resolve their matters, their concerns, their issues. And so that we can all love this country that it's called Guyana, and ultimately to have development for all our peoples so that we can speak towards achieving our one Guyana under Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
I just want to say that we want to remind the public that we are fair and balanced. We ask the questions and our guests provide the answers. We don't interrupt. Minister, can you stay on for a minute after we get off the air? I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you so much, Minister. Thank you, Dr. Rose, to all our audience out there. Thank you for being with us tonight. To Nohar and to Devin, to all our beautiful people of Guyana, good night and God bless our great country. Thank you.